we're going to try to take this thing apart. And I'm not using my lapel microphone, so I'm going to speak up a little bit. You need to pull this rod out, is what actually actuates the clutch. And you get that out of the way. We're going to turn this trans up on the end. And then we're going to start reading the book. Okay, we're supposed to start by pulling off this cover right here. The throwout bearing actually lives under here. Alright, it may be mangled. So that's our clutch release. Throwout bearings right there. Now we need to pull all these bolts out. So the cover's off. That right there is the pinion shaft needle bearing. I mean, looks to be alright. So we'll put this in the parts washer. This is our throwout bearing. That'll probably come new in a clutch kit, so I need to really worry about that. Let's see next. Remove these. Next, we're going to pull this out. This is our backup light switch. The Germans are predictable here. This is a 22. Get that out of there, and there's a sealing washer behind it. And this, I believe, keeps you from getting in multiple gears and holds this stuff in. Pull that out. That's a 24. That's a little tighter. This is a little detent, and this is spring. That's what clicks you between gears, I guess. Now, this thing ought to pull out of here, I suspect, or maybe not. Let's read on. So, based on the picture, that would be the Selector shaft cover. I have my special homemade tool here, because that is like a 27mm hex. Back to the drawing board. Not sure where we left off. I need to get this out of here. I did not have a proper tool to remove it. That's a 27mm hex. But I was able to find a pipe fitting in a 11/16 socket that you'll never use. And I welded them together. So now we're supposed to be able to open this up, pull this out. Supposed to remove this along with the spring, and then something else happens. This whole thing's supposed to pull out, but let me read the book and verify that. So after removing the Selector shaft cover, we're supposed to remove. I got the spring out. Remove the selector shaft cover and spring, and then remove the selector shaft. So I'm guessing this is supposed to pull out, but I was looking at this shaft today and touched it, and it shot right out of the trans. So this is the selector shaft tube, and so I think the shift forks may be jacked up in there now, and I'm not going to be able to pull this out because that would be neutral. So we may have to go a little rogue here, see what our next step's going to be. So this is apparently a nut that holds this gear on, and it is a 12 millimeter. It said 12 millimeter hex in the book, but it's a triple square. According to the manual, you're supposed to reach in here and engage first and reverse, or 2 gears to lock the trans up so it won't turn. I think we've already inadvertently done that by pulling this out. So let's see if we can break this nut loose. No, so apparently we haven't. So now that I'm not able to get this out and go in there and engage 2 gears, we may have to use a little air impact action to try to blast that off there. Because what we need to do is separate this whole section of the transmission. All right, hold your ears, folks. Did work. So there's that nut. There's a washer. Really not sure what's going to happen next because we violated the order of things. So let me continue reading. So based on what I've read, there's a special tool that goes down around all this and engages and unscrews this tube. Well, since I already violated the first rule and pulled this out, I already pulled it out the rest of the way just because we got to go deeper anyway. I tried using some snap ring pliers and grabbing a hold of that, and that was not going to happen. So now I think I might be able to engage this with something flat, large screwdriver, and try to turn that. It's been a few days, not sure where we were. I got the 5th gear clip off, and I guess that's a washer. This thing's been kicking my ass right here. I finally figured out you have to take this locking piece and pry it off the other piece, and that should loosen this and allow this thing to turn. Now I've tried turning this and already it's got a slot in here, and that thing blew out even though I didn't turn it very hard. This requires some special VW tool, which I don't have and don't plan on buying, but I should be able to turn that out now that this locking piece is off there, because that thing's apparently kind of splined, and that's what keeps it from moving. That is the selector shaft tube. I was supposed to have pulled this out already, but since the shaft came out, the shifting tube, I can't. We're just going to try to get this thing out of here, pull this off, get this gear off, and then we'll split this case. Easy to say. That thing turns easy when you have it apart. Have it unlocked. Let's try this by holding this up. And we use this gigantic pry bar as a big screwdriver. I had to file on this a little bit. Finally came up with this solution. It looks like we're going to back all the way out of there now. I say that as soon as I turn the camera on. From what I understand, this should unscrew all the way out of this shift fork setup here. All right, a little persuasion. Locking plate comes off. This whole setup ought to pull off here. All right. Already taken the clip off here, so now that's off. Try to keep all this together. Now we need to take this axle flange off to separate the rest of this. Sometimes you can pop these out of here. We'll definitely need one of those at this point. Down inside here is another circlip, but there's pressure on this, so you typically can't just pop it loose. The edges are right there. So there's, of course, a special tool VW makes that you can take this loose with. I made this several years ago out of a piece of aluminum and a bolt, because the center of that hole down there is threaded. There we go. So that clip's loose. Now, so the circlip's out of there. There's also a spring washer in there. That's what's supplying the tension and not allowing us to just pop that spring clip off there. Sure, this is not the preferred method, but it appears to be working. Of course, these under here will need to be done the old-fashioned way. Okay, so I took these bolts out, which are actually M7 that hold this bearing in. According to the book, we need to press that off. I didn't have any M7 bolts long enough, so I made some at work. Well, since then the bearing retainer fell down in, so that was kind of a waste of time. I tapped on the housing and it came apart about a half an inch, and then it stopped. So I messed around with the clutch rod and shoved it down the shift fork hole and got them lined up, and miraculously the shifter came out. So then that could probably, well, we'll leave that there for now. And it would pull up about this far. And then I looked around and discovered this bolt in the top, which is not mentioned in the book. So I pulled that out. Now we've come this far. So what I'm hoping is right here, this thing will pull apart. There we go. So all the shift fork stuff's falling. Let me get the clutch rod out of here. So I'm gonna have to figure out how all this stuff gets rearranged in there. It's the whole reverse thing. I'm thinking my problem is this noise right here. I don't know if you can hear that. That bearing's definitely bad, and that's the retainer that holds it in the case. Everything else looks alright. I'm not sure how deep I want to go in there to look at that other bearing. Let me look at the book and we'll figure that out. And then we'll order a clutch and definitely that bearing. See if that'll come off. Looks like it's starting to. Had to pull on that locking plate, thing that holds it in the trans, because there wasn't enough room. Okay, one of my concerns was that this journal on the trans will be screwed up, which it doesn't look like it. So this thing looks to be the subject of our noise, and it clearly is. So let me find one of these and the associated parts, and we'll put this back together.